existing here in the center of our bodies, our body beings, and being within this space with your host, Jade Silbernagel, and her guest today, Chris Barnard. Yeah, Chris and I spent 16 days on the Grand Canyon together rafting. He was packrafting, and I was just being passenger princess most of the time. But, it's even passenger princess has to carry her own weight on the Grand Canyon on a trip like that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so thank you for being here today.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we're just chilling in a backyard, and hopefully Sunny is not going to eat the plants. We have to keep an eye on him.
A little chaos with the creatures. But
I figure, why curate things so heavily when sometimes the chaos is part of the creation?
Oh, it's absolutely part of it. On the river, you kind of never know what you're going to get and what's coming down the,
Right.
Whatever situation comes up is what you deal with, and just make the most of it and enjoy the experience.
How did you learn to do that? How did you learn to enjoy the experience within the chaos of the river?
There was just something in it that I just loved about it. It was kind of a different, at the time when I started boating, it was this kind of happy place that I would go to, or kind of a place where I would step out from all the other things that were going on in my life and just zoom into exactly that moment. Like, what was I doing? What needed to be done right then? And all the distractions. There wasn't space for thinking about how much money I needed to make, or what things were coming down the pipeline in terms of things I needed to do, or things like that. It was just, I want to catch this eddy over there, or I need to avoid this rock, or so everything that was going on was just kind of the immediate right there, and just this flow about it. And yeah, it's just it just took me to this place of just presence and being there and enjoying that experience.
Did you have practices before you started packrafting that brought you to that space of presence, or was this really the thing?
No, before I got into paddling, I was into bouldering and rock climbing, but mostly bouldering in the realm of rock climbing. I kind of liked not dealing with ropes or all of the gear, but just this pure climbing and movement of the body. Hey, Chaga. Good boy. But it was, with bouldering, I would go into this kind of zone where you just kind of turn your brain off and execute the moves that needed to be done. There'd be, times you'd get up a little bit high and you'd feel maybe a little nervous or something. And you just kind of had to just shut the brain off and execute. And just focus in on, all right, I want to put my toe here, I want to put my fingers here, and do it. And I think that did help with kind of how my mindset was approaching paddling. And it was very skills oriented, where some people are just out there just to float down the river and have fun. And I always saw it as this challenge of, can I do this a little bit better, or more efficiently, or how can I harness the current a little bit, or all of these things.
And I think you have a saying that goes something like, if you don't swim, you're not trying hard enough. Is that accurate?
I would say that, especially when I was starting out, that if I don't come out of my boat, it's not a day of packrafting.
And I think that's how you've built your skills, and how you can, get back in your boat so quickly too.
From that early start, being able to recover was something that was really, it was just a critical skill, and that opened the door to being able to learn all the other skills. And a friend of mine once said, when I was chatting with him early on in paddling, and I was noticing other people that didn't have that skill as I was expanding the group of people that I paddled with. And he said, well, when you really push yourself, the first skill that you master is how to self-rescue, or to wet re-enter and climb back into your boat. Because it's, as soon as you're trying stuff, you're flipping more, and mastering that skill is allowing you to really go to the whitewater park and surf waves, knowing that you probably going to flip a lot. But then you can recover, and then you get better at surfing, and then you start taking that to the rivers in like a flow state where you enter into a rapid and you go, oh, that's a fun wave, and you just turn and surf it and then peel out the other side, and lets you just kind of like play your way down the river. And that's kind of the attitude that I've always tried to embrace on the river, is that of like, I'm out there to have fun, and it's just playing, and like this spontaneous, like almost like a spontaneous play, where I don't really, I often won't know what I'm going to do, like have an agenda going into features. It's just, oh, that looks neat, and then I go do something, and then come out of there and it's, oh, what if I go catch that eddy now, or peel out there, and it's just real spontaneous. And
you just never know what is going to be around the bend. Even if you've ran the river multiple times, it's different every day, would you say?
It certainly can be. Like right now we've got the payettes nearby, and they're kind of dam controlled at this time of year, and so each day is fairly consistent. If they're releasing the same amount of water, you can kind of learn those features. And the river by my house, I live in Colorado in the Arkansas Valley, as you know, and the river there right now is the same way, where it changes by a few CFS maybe each day, as a little bit of the side creeks start to slow down. But a lot of our natural snow melts kind of like subsided at this point in second half of July.
Yeah, it's so fascinating. So there's probably some people listening that don't even know what packrafting is, but they're probably feeling intrigued by your passion for it, and just like your attitude, about it. How would you describe packrafting?
So a packraft is an inflatable kayak, but it's light. So they can weigh anything from, probably some of the lightest ones would be like 4 or 5 pounds. They're a little bit less whitewater oriented, but so we'll say they range from like 4 to 5 pounds to 15-ish pounds. And you can pack them up and put them in a backpack with your life jacket, helmet, paddle, and even overnight gear for multi-day trips. And you can hike into remote wilderness or different places, and a lot of the ones used for kind of expeditions have a zipper where you can open up the boat and put your sleeping bag and your tent and all of these things inside of it, and then zip it up and then inflate it, and all that stuff is then kind of inside the boat, and it allows you to just kind of access these places that that I had no means of accessing before that. So it kind of opened the door to all of these wilderness experiences that are off of the trail and off of the road, and you're there with the wildlife, and it's just a beautiful way to access nature.
Right, because you're backpacking and you're rafting. Maybe paint a visual for us of one of your trips. How does that go? So you backpack in, and how far, and how much gear do you bring? How do you pack your food? What are the logistics of that?
So I'll just tell a little bit about one particular trip that I did a few years back here in Idaho, but it was a really cool one. And we launched at a spot called Corn Creek on the main Salmon River, and we paddled around 30-ish miles to the South Fork Salmon, and from there we hiked up and over a ridge that was about, let's say, 20 miles of hiking, but with a lot of elevation climb, and used that to get to Big Creek, which we paddled then to the Middle Fork Salmon, which we paddled back to the main Salmon to go in like a 120-mile circle, where I guess it was about 30 miles of hiking, where 90 of it was paddling to go in a circle and finish back where we started. And for that we had, overnight gear. I carried a tarp, a sleeping pad, a little mini bivvy.
Tyvek tarp. That's Chris's way.
I did carry the Tyvek sheet. For that one I had a Dyneema tarp as well that I would string up to block rain. We had some rainstorms, Idaho in June.
Oh, yes, totally. Definitely. That's why the wildflowers thrive.
Yeah. And then we had, I think on that one we were doing 9 or 10 days. So we had a lot of food. And one of the extra kind of logistic things are those rivers are protected. They're designated wild and scenic rivers, and you probably know this from the Grand Canyon. But when you go to the bathroom, you don't get to just bury it next to the river,
right?
But you've got to carry it with you, which is an extra challenge when you're hiking as well.
Oh my gosh, yeah. And how do you keep it from not smelling bad?
It's gonna smell bad.
Really? Yeah. So you're just sitting there with your shit just attached to you the entire time. Do you think that's worth it?
Well, so on that particular trip, I managed to we did the main salmon stretch in like one night camping on it, and then the second night we got to the South Fork salmon, and we were leaving on trail. And so I held it for the first couple of days so that I could do it on trail out of the river corridor, so I wouldn't have to carry my initial 2 days worth of poop for the 30 miles, 7,000 vertical up and down, up and over these mountains to access another drainage. But my friend Adrian, he didn't have that ability. So he had a dry bag clipped to his backpack with poop that he carried around for 10 days, and it smelled.
Wow. If you think your shit don't stink.
Let it bake in the Idaho sun for a little bit and then see.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's like quite a meditation to, was that painful? To like not allow yourself to, to allow things to move as they are made.
Well.
Oh my gosh, there's like a little moth behind you.
Oh.
Yeah. A butterfly or a moth. That's really sweet. Precious.
To answer that question, I kind of, when I change environments or change locations or I travel, sometimes it takes me a couple of days to get regular.
Right.
And so this was kind of starting that trip. Was my body was like, oh, you're changing locations. You're going from being in your van to all of a sudden to being on the river, and it was kind of like so it just was kind of natural to do that.
Okay. So it's not some like skill that somebody could also learn. It's just kind of a changing environment sort of thing.
Perhaps. I don't know the transferability of that particular skill. I've never tried to teach someone how to not go to the bathroom.
You're like, so what you do is you go into a slightly higher stress state.
Yeah.
And your body will just choose to shut down that aspect.
It's not convenient right now, so we will not do that.
Yeah. Yeah, just in case we have to run from a bear or something. Which, Megan, my cousin, who you also know, who is on the Grand Canyon, they had a grizzly bear experience in Wyoming.
Yeah.
That could have gone terribly, but went wonderfully.
Yep.
They got to witness the bear run up the hill away from them.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's kind of best case scenario where you get to see the wildlife close up like that, especially, something like that, like a bear, a cougar, or a moose. You get to come eye to eye with them, but then have it end in, parting ways safely.
Yeah.
Have you had any experiences like that?
Yeah. That trip I was talking about, when we camped at the South Fork Salmon, there was a mama black bear with two cubs that were on the other side of the river from where we were camped, just foraging and eating berries, and were not interested in coming across the river to our camp in any way, but we sat there eating dinner, just watching them eat their dinner.
Wow.
And then they just, peacefully went on down the river and explored, and it was pretty neat to sit and watch them. And I've encountered some moose as well. I had one time in Colorado on the river. I was going down the Blue River, kind of just north of Frisco, Silverthorne, and Summit County. And I'm coming up to this spot, and all of a sudden a mom moose, it starts coming out into the middle of the river with baby behind her, with the calf.
Yeah.
And moose are very protective and aggressive. Mm-hmm. And at that moment, there was the river split, and there was an island, which is where the moose was going. But I, looked at it and said, I'm going in they were coming out the right side, and so I'm going in the left channel. And it was like all of a sudden I was just presented this option of like not, of another route to go around the moose so it could have its space to come and do its thing with the baby.
Right.
And, not float into it, because it's, it just kind of comes in the middle of the river, stops, turns and looks at this yellow thing that's floating down the river, coming at it.
Yeah.
And, lowers the head a little bit.
Not him.
Yes. Yeah, so I paddle a yellow packraft. So it was my yellow boat, me and the yellow boat floating down, and the moose was just kind of looking like, what is this?
Yeah.
I am not letting this get close to my baby.
Yeah, no kidding.
And so I was just very grateful that I had this opportunity just to see it, witness it, but to have a little, like, be able to give it space, because sometimes in the river, the current's flowing and it's not as easy to stop as, other times. So.
Commercial break. I don't know what commercials we'll be playing, but.
Hey, I'm Chris. I want to tell you guys today about the Kokopeli Rodeo. It's a super fun boat. It has a really great rocker kind of from side to side, so it's got this curved bottom that lets you really carve in and out of the current and into eddies. It's super fast. The drain holes, it's got these little flaps here that keep the water from coming in every time you're, like when you're heading downstream, so that makes it surf really well with its extra hole speed compared to other sail failers. And it's just a super fun boat. The rocker lets you boof, so it's got the front kind of sticks up a little bit, which helps you like climb up waves and get good strokes to launch it in the air. Took it down the Grand Canyon, super fun, big water.
Oh, excuse you, sir. Yes, Sonny he's our grip today. He is helping us pass out microphones.
What was the term you used?
Grip.
Grip. Oh,
Yeah, he's like the assistant.
Okay.
Yeah. The assistant dude.
All right.
Yeah. Anyways, okay, so we're back from commercial break, and hopefully y'all enjoyed that Kokopeli commercial break there. Footage thanks to Tristan. He's a rad dude.
Everyone knows Tristan.
Yeah, everybody knows Tristan. The Packraft community seems really tight knit too, which is pretty cool. Like every Packrafter I've met so far, I adore. I feel like there's just like this essence about you guys.
Yeah, it is. It's been like such a niche, like sport or activity, kind of whatever you want to call it, and from that, it's kind of created a tight knit bond where, when you see other people packrafting on the river, you often end up kind of chatting with them a little bit. Or we have each year there's a roundup or a Packrafter gathering that's put on by the APA, or American Packrafting Association, and those are community events where something like 100 to 150 people all come together and share meals together and chat and go out on the river on to different adventures with not all 150 people at the same time on a river, but kind of divide into groups and go and do stuff. And
this is like kind of a random question, but I was trying to imagine this the other day when I was packrafting with you guys. There were maybe 7 of us going down at a time. Yeah. Are there more people that go at once?
There can be. The more people, I find it gets a bit more chaotic, and it can be, you think sometimes you feel like there's safety in numbers, but it's like when the group is so large, you'll tend to end up with a worse ratio of less experienced people. It's kind of just how that often works out. Yeah. And so when things start to go awry, it can kind of compound really quickly. Like if you suddenly have 3 or 4 people that are out of their boats and can't recover, it can get pretty messy.
Right, that makes sense. Yeah.
And I have had some where we've got maybe 20 or 25 people trying to go down the river together, and it's a less experienced group that are all. Like often in that situation, people are using this opportunity to say like, oh, there's these experienced people that are kind of leading the group. This is a great chance for me to do something that's more difficult than I would have done on my own.
Right.
And then when a large percentage of that group is making that same decision, there's more people that need help than people that can help, or are people that are really comfortable helping. And we're also more spread out. So like if I'm pretty comfortable with rescuing somebody that's swimming, but if I'm in the front of the group leading and the last 3 people are all having a bad swim, it's hard for me to traverse through 20 people to get into that position. There's just kind of people are in the way. You want to get them into an eddy, but there's people in that there's people that are there, using up some of that space where you could maybe try and rescue them into, or get them out of the current. And so it gets kind of very chaotic very quickly with the large
Yeah,
groups.
that makes sense. You had a term for that yesterday too.
The expert halo.
Expert halo. Yeah. I thought that was interesting because, yeah, it's true. It's like, but yeah, we're all in life in general, all, very accountable for our own beings and our own safety. And when it comes to these types of sports, it shows up even more. Right.
Yeah, I mean, and that's not to say that it's not beneficial to go out with people that are more experienced than you. I've learned, I've had great experiences going out with some people that have been some of my mentors through growing in paddling. That I see them doing things that I'm like, ooh, I never thought about trying to surf a wave that big, or I never thought about going off that 10-foot waterfall or something, these are all things that are possible. Right. When you see someone else do that, it like expands your awareness of the universe of things you could be doing. Right. But you just kind of have to be careful and know that, you're placing some weight into that. Oh, I feel comfortable doing this because I see that they're doing it, but you may not have as much experience doing it as them, or it's just to be mindful of the biases that we're like, oh, they're doing it, it's okay for me, but your experience may not lead you to the same skills that they have, or, something along those lines.
Right. Your lesson might be a different lesson than what they're learning. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, there's so many metaphors that come up through everything, but especially when you're out there just in the wild and present in the moment. How do you find that translating into your day-to-day life, into your life within the matrix, as we call it, or as I call it?
Yeah, the more time I've spent paddling, the more I see it applying into, the same ideas applying into my life, where, the current is, in some ways just the flow of, it's the flow of the water. The current is the flow of the water going down the river. And by, when you're trying to fight against that flow, it's kind of like when you're resisting in life, kind of the flow and progression and the moment or the situation that's presenting itself. And like, instead you can, when you're paddling, so much of like advancing your skills in paddling is learning how to harness the current and do things with less effort. Like you're still going to take hard strokes and you're going to work hard and you're going to do things, but you're utilizing the flow of the water to maximize the efficiency of how you're moving across the water. And then it can become this kind of almost dance where the boat will just carve around and you can grab the current with the paddle and it'll slingshot you over here, and then you'll swing on a dime and go back the other direction, and it's just this very like harmonic flow. And I see myself like recognizing that in life, where it's like, oh, I thought that I wanted to go do something, I wanted to go do this trip, but situations have changed, and what's natural now is that I go and do this. And instead of like being attached to that, I had this preconceived idea of that I'm going in this direction. It's like now life is flowing me in this other path, and embracing that. And if I embrace it and I put in hard work to go in those directions, and that doesn't mean you don't have goals or things that you're working towards, but being open to the doors that life is opening and closing. And instead of just trying to knock down the closed doors all the time, instead of being just attached to the door that I was trying to open, just seeing, oh, this opportunity's presented itself, and kind of going with that flow. And it can lead to me being in a flow state in life and things I'm doing. And it's just, I don't know, I just find it it's sometimes hard to put it all into words.
Yeah,
but
totally.
The experience of just, being present in the river and being in these beautiful environments out in nature has, made me want, also kind of like shown me what I value and value in the experience sometimes, and to try and like bring that into my life in different ways, and being present in my interactions with others, and just focused on the task that's at hand, kind of like sometimes single-mindedness.
Right. Yeah, that can be really helpful, especially in today's world where we have so many distractions and so many things going on all at once. And it's like, yes, it's a skill to kind of hold it all and pay attention to it all, but it's also a skill to be single-minded and focused on a task, one thing at a time.
Yeah, and it's like when I was like a college kid, I was diagnosed with ADD. And so trying to hold a bunch of things that I'm doing tends to not work well for me, and just the way that I'm built. Like, I get distracted very easily. I end up, picking up something and then setting it down and then picking up something else, whether those are hobbies or physical objects in my environment. It can be that. But when it also means that I have the ability to kind of hyper focus on something that I find very interesting or enjoyable, or that I'm just deriving some like joy out of. And so, paddling was one of those outlets for me. Just the movement and the flow of the river and kind of harnessing that. Just really, it's like I can get into that zone, and I it's like I don't really know how to describe it. It's just the whole rest of the world disappears, and
right.
All I can see is, the next 50 to 100 feet down the river of what all the different things that are laid out before me, and I'm looking like single point, that I'm like a target that I'm aiming for, and moving the blade through the water, just kind of like feeling the current and the pressure on the blade, and how that's like visualizing how that's going to make the boat go to my target, and just harnessing that. And there's nothing else that exists in that moment.
Did it take you a long time to get to that point with packrafting?
I mean, somewhat, I guess. I did it a lot when I first started. I would go multiple, like day in, day out. I would just drive out to the river and run the same stretch of river over and over and over again.
It's like the ADD thing, I think, kicking in.
And I would go, and this is where the expression of "it's not a day of paddling if I don't fall out of my boat" is that I would run this 1 mile stretch of river kind of near Denver, Waterton Canyon, and I would do it over and over again, trying new things until I'd flip on something. And then I would go, all right, how can I learn from that? And, at first it would be learning different strokes, and I would think about what I was doing. And then over time, it just kind of integrates into my instinctual repertoire of, I feel this, I do this. And I don't, it's not really a logical thought, it just becomes an instinct of that. And so, there's something about practicing, like intentional practice builds those instincts on how you respond are somewhat technically sound. Because if you don't practice that intentionally, you're unintentionally practicing. And you're learning, potentially you're just ingraining the instincts that are bad habits. So in packrafting, I don't know that you've seen this because you've only been out a couple of times.
Yeah,
but you did
only been on a packraft twice, but it was great.
But there's times where you'll see somebody flip, and they reach over and they grab the bottom of the boat as it's going over. Like they kind of want to pull themselves over.
Oh, yeah.
But we'll call that closing the coffin door. Because what happens is they just pull the boat the rest of the way over on their heads.
Yeah.
Because the boat weighs, let's say, 10 pounds, and maybe you weigh 150 pounds or something, and you know, which one wins, right?
Yeah. And I think there's this feeling of like, okay, I just want to get this over with, you know, and because I experienced that on the Grand Canyon when I was borrowing Megan's Packraft, and luckily you were there to rescue me, so I got to experience that. But yeah, I remember that like slow motion moment where I was starting to tip, and I my hat was also starting to fall off, and I didn't want to give my hat up. I had already lost my glasses that day, and so I remember just leaning, kind of pushing myself a little bit more. You know, I didn't grab the other side necessarily, but I just kind of almost gave up. You know, and it was like, wasn't totally conscious though.
Yeah. And that's natural. Like, it's your first time, you know, it was your first time in a Packraft and first time to flip. I think only time to flip, right?
Yeah. Well, I flipped immediately after that again, but it was kind of all in one swoop. Yeah.
But you know, just building those skills of how do you brace, how do you deal with these situations that come up, because there will be, you know, if you paddle the river enough times, you know, there's an expression in whitewater from kayakers as well as packrafters that you're always in between swims. In other words, like, no matter how experienced you become, the river's a very dynamic environment, and things are changing, and sometimes the water's surging and doing very unpredictable things. And, you know, again, another little metaphor for life, like, there's, even when things are going great, there could be something that's unforeseen that's coming right around the corner that can be a new challenge to present itself. And like learning how to encounter a challenge and face it somewhat gracefully, accept what's coming, accept the situation, and know how to recover from it. So like, you know, when you get knocked down, knowing how to get up, or when you flip, knowing how to climb back in your boat, or all the things that life can suddenly throw at you. Like, you know, I'm here with you because I wrecked my van, and I was not, you know, it's kind of thrown a wrench into what I'm doing.
Right. It is. It's funny because you didn't know entirely what you were going to do, you know, with your time, like following the packrafting event, a full weekend of packrafting. You're like, yeah, I'm going to kind of, you know, go with the flow and figure it out. And you're doing exactly that. It's just a different iteration.
It is, yeah.
Very different
iteration. I have
iteration.
to say, I was hoping for the South Fork salmon trip instead of trying to figure out how I get all my stuff back to Colorado. But, you know, it's like you deal with the situation life presents you with, and make the best decision you can in that moment, and move forward.
Yeah, and witnessing this whole process too has been really inspiring. I feel like you've handled everything so gracefully, as you do. Even the way you wrecked the van was graceful. It's like, I don't know how. I'm like, oh, that was definitely Chris style.
It didn't feel that graceful, I will say.
Well, it probably doesn't feel graceful when you flip your Packraft either, but those of us watching you from the outside, we're always like, how does he do this just so like beautifully? I don't understand. I mean, I think it's just your constitution, just who you are.
Oh, thank you.
We just barely scratch the surface of the wisdom that you have to share, is what I'm trying to say. And also that it is just so beyond words. And so thank you for being here today on the Golden Exposure podcast, and sharing some of those words, and sharing your wisdom and your essence with the world.
Yeah, well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm so glad this could happen. I know we joked about it on the Grand Canyon, about you being on my podcast, and at first you thought it was a joke, you know. I mean, I was kind of serious.
It's like, why would anyone want me on a podcast?
But then you came back to me like probably 2 days later or something, and you're like, I was kind of thinking about that, and yeah.
Yeah, I was like, well, I felt like I just dismissed the idea because I thought you were joking, and I was like, well, I didn't mean to just be dismissive if you weren't joking, but still don't know what you want me to say.
I mean, I didn't even know what I wanted you to say. I just appreciate you, and I just know that you have wisdom to share with the world. Yeah, and we really didn't even get into your background, which is very fascinating. Yeah, and you being a finance major and coming from, a family lifestyle growing up where you didn't really have access to things like this, and now
That's
you're
true.
Yeah, now you're full wild man, out there. Yeah, between you and your wife, you two are just like living it up in that way and really choosing that lifestyle. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We do try and get out and enjoy ourselves and do things. We get to live in a beautiful place in the mountains in Colorado where we have access to rivers and mountains and trails, and there's kind of an ebb and flow to where our interests go, and she and I met through packrafting.
Yeah, I love that story. Do you want to tell that story really quick? I don't think we're done here yet.
Well, one of these APA roundups in 2018 was held in Carbondale, Colorado, and this was early in my packrafting kind of career, so to speak, and I had started boating started packrafting in 2017 is when I got my first boat. So it was about a year of packrafting, and I didn't know many people in the community, and I had seen that they had this event the previous year, but I couldn't make it, and it was like when I was a beginner. And so the next year when it was announced, I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to this. I want to meet people in the community. And so I go over to Carbondale. I was living in Denver at the time, so it was about 3 hours away. And I see there's this girl there that's leading all of these trips, taking people out on the river. And I remember thinking, like, man, I need to come to Carbondale more often. And
so funny.
Then I see her car when we run shuttle, and it says Quebec. And I was like, oh, well, she doesn't live around here at all. Like, that's way further away than 3 hours from Carbondale. But I went up to her and I was like, hey, I hear there's a Canadian packrafting roundup. Are you going to be going? And she's like, well, I am organizing it. And I was like, oh, well, I didn't know that you were somebody so special, But I decided in that moment that I was definitely going to try and make the Canadian packrafting roundup. And I went up there and we spent some time together before the event and kind of really hit it off. And after that, it was kind of trying to figure things out, and she ended up moving down to Colorado, and then we've, one thing led to another, and now we've built a life there together and moved up into the mountains out of the city and been there for 5 years and get to just enjoy like our little life in paradise.
Yeah.
So.
Oh, that's so beautiful and so expansive too for people to hear these things. It's like you said, like when you're on the water and you see somebody do something fancy, that you haven't tried before, that it's possible. And when people hear about these stories and, and the lifestyle that you're living, they're like, oh, wow, that's possible.
Yeah. Yeah, it's great to, like, we all get to, like, you never know if you're inspiring somebody else. Like, it doesn't feel like that to you necessarily, right? You're just doing your own thing. Yeah. And then other people may, see that and say, oh, well, now I see that something else is possible that I didn't consider. And it's not really you're not necessarily aware of that.
Yeah.
As that person that's just doing your own thing. And, you're also learning from people that have inspired you. And it's, we're all kind of like showing each other what's possible as we're going through life in general and seeing the amazing things other people are able to do and how they find their path, which is filled with purpose for them. Yeah. And, seeing people that are living, their version of their dream. And, it's just kind of like, an opportunity to go for it. And there's ups and downs. Some days, some things are easier than others.
Something really important to remember. Yeah. Just because you're having, ups and downs doesn't mean you're doing it wrong.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. It can even be those struggles can end up leading to some of the most fulfilling experiences, where when things are difficult, you get to see that you're able to rise to the occasion in a way maybe that you didn't know you were. And so that's been another learning where in life, and back to the river metaphors, when things go awry and you're suddenly in like a canyon, your boat's gotten away, you're trying to rescue people, or all these different things, you can see how everybody comes together and pulls together and works for the greater common good. And everyone's doing their best, and you rise to the occasion, and then you see like how you're able to step up in these moments. And
you see where you rise too, like in relativity to everybody else in that group. You just move into your place. Like in the Grand Canyon, my mom became like the kitchen master, basically. And she probably never would have assumed that, but it's hilarious because right before the trip, she did say, well, I can do dishes. And I may not know much about rafting, but I can do dishes. And then she ended up being the whole kitchen, organizer, and really kept everybody sane in that way. But that occasion had to be, slightly out of array, out of sorts, for a moment for that rising to occur.
Yeah.
So I think that's an incredible point. Yeah. We all have our place in this world, for sure. And when we're given the opportunity and we allow ourselves the opportunity, then it's inevitable.
Yeah. Like in some ways it's inevitable. In some ways it's like you can choose not to rise to the occasion.
That's true. I think it's almost, maybe, let's see, it's almost harder to not rise to the occasion when you're out in the wild in a survival scenario. But,
I 100% agree with that. And I just was thinking back to like
day-to-day life sort of thing.
Well, yeah, and just points in time in my past, kind of when I was, like early in my 20s, I was working a job I didn't really like, and feeling kind of lost and directionless in some ways. Like I just didn't know what I wanted to do. I remember my dad would say to me, like, you don't seem to, like, I was like, oh, I don't really like that. He's like, you don't seem to like anything. And I was kind of like I see later in life that I just hadn't found the things that I really liked yet. And so I was still kind of searching for that. But I grew up in the suburbs, kind of like you were saying, without really, like the way I accessed nature was playing on the high school golf team. Because I would go walk around a golf course and be outside, and that became a little hook or an anchor that I latched into later when I was trying to find what did I like, because I'd kind of just done the things that I thought I was supposed to do through my 20s and hadn't really explored what do I personally enjoy. It wasn't really a question I ever had thought to ask. It was just like, what am I supposed to do now? What am I going to do? And it wasn't like, well, what do I want to do? Like, if I could do anything, what would it be? And when I finally started to ask that question, I didn't know. I was just like, oh, I used to enjoy being outside for golf. Maybe I'd like to do some hiking. And then it was like, oh, well, I kind of enjoy this 3D movement through rock climbing. And then it was like, oh, well, paddling, there's something about the flow of the water and the physics, like my brain's kind of physics oriented. So it really, that resonated with me in some way. And so it's just kind of following this intuition of what am I enjoying? What am I doing that's bringing me joy?
Right. And observing yourself from kind of a third person perspective is what it sounds like. Zooming out a little bit.
Zooming out, but also zooming in.
And zooming in, being so deeply embodied in your path too.
Yeah, and it's like having gone from kind of feeling, being depressed, years ago, to feeling like just joy and bliss. It's, I sometimes call it my emotional guidance system, where like, if I'm doing something and I'm just I wake up and I'm filled with dread at all the things that I need to do, and it's, it's not dealing with my crashed van. Like, I don't look forward to some of those things, but it's just like, if what the path I'm going down is just making me feel closed, like this kind of constriction and dreading, versus another path as feeling like open and happy and joyful. It's like trying to tune into that and not just doing something I hate because I think it's what I'm supposed to be doing, but like seeing where is life, where am I supposed to be? Like, what's resonating with me that's my intuition is saying yes to, and my spirit's kind of saying yes to, and this is working for me. And by listening to those things and really pouring myself into it, it's kind of like amazing how then doors will start to open or opportunities come up. And it's like when you're kind of trapped in the other way of doing the things that you're supposed to be doing and dreading, you don't see another path.
Right.
It can be really hard to see, another way out. Like, I've had friends that are like, well, I could never do what you're doing because of XYZ or all of these different things. And it's, when you see that there's no way to do that, then that's your reality.
Right. It's just a simple shift in paradigm.
Yeah. The opportunities that you can't see don't exist.
Right. They just don't exist. If you're, so it's always curious to continuously ask yourself too, like, what am I not seeing, that I could create with?
It's like, having come from playing poker and trading and things, there's this idea of luck. But I always say that luck is when preparation meets opportunity. And it's like, you have done the work to know what you're looking for, and then an opportunity arises and you're prepared to take advantage of it. And it can be so serendipitous, or like the synchronicities that we experience in life are like lucky moments. But if you're not prepared or not willing to take action in those moments, they just kind of pass you by. And sometimes the moments you get unlucky are hard to avoid. So you end up feeling like, oh, I'm an unlucky person because all these bad things are happening to me, but the good things aren't. And it's just that you're not able or ready to take advantage of those moments where everything falls into place. But when the bad thing happens, you fixate on it. And so because your identity is that of an unlucky person, and so you're focusing in on that. But if you believe that you're lucky and you're looking for opportunities, then you're and doing work, like that's an important, because it's not like everything just magically comes together.
Rising to the occasion.
Yes,
and it feels magical sometimes, but and sometimes maybe those skills are even dialed in so much that it feels almost effortless. But then when you think about your entire life of skill building for that one opportunity, that one moment, you're like, oh wow, I've had literally a lifetime of foundational building to be able to meet this moment. Like, how beautiful.
And back to the river, one thing I think I've said to you before is that it's an attitude of play. But that's my practice, is playing. And so it's hard work. My body's physically gets tired when I'm trying to catch a bunch of waves and surf and catch all these eddies and do all these things, really dynamically moving around the river. So it's you can't say that I'm not putting in effort, but it
Yeah.
doesn't feel like I'm, there's not like this burden of, oh, I have to go do this practice. It's like I'm
Right.
going out to play and have fun. And in doing so, I'm learning skills that will help me rise to the occasion when it's needed in a future trip with people, or future trip for myself. Like I might need it to save myself in a bad spot, or and so
Yeah.
all those moments come together, and it's kind of like that in life. If you have like a skill or a hobby and you really enjoy it, by making that, like kind of delving into that passion and seeing where that can kind of take you, and I know you've kind
Just
of
being curious.
yeah
Yeah.
you seem to have done that some with your arts and your painting and
Yeah.
photography, and seeing where
Yeah.
these things can lead you.
Yeah, herbalism, craniosacral,
Yeah.
healing arts, things. Yeah, many things.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and it still feels like it's just the beginning in so many ways. That's, I often, recently, especially in the last couple of years, really kind of sit in that practice of acknowledging that it has taken a lifetime to get to this point, and it's only just the beginning, which is exciting.
It is. It's kind of beautiful.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and also it's like if playing like in these waters of exploration is like the point of the rest of your life, or the point of the rest of my life, like that's so perfect. It's so perfect. Sometimes I think we try to overcomplicate, our purpose here on this earth. Chris, you were telling a story, this beautiful story of the right turn. We'll just call it the right turn.
So I first, I think what led into it is I was saying how we don't know how sometimes we inspire others, and there were people that inspired me, and that I first heard about packrafting in like 2012 by people up in Alaska. Roman Dial and Luke Mail and a few others that were kind of some of the early pioneers of packrafting. And at that moment I heard of it, but it wasn't the right opportunity for me. So it was like I left to go do other things, traveling and doing other things at that point. But then I moved to Colorado and was taking a trip to Moab. And as I got ready to drive home, the GPS said to go straight to head towards the interstate. But came up to the Colorado River, and there's a river with a canyon going to the right. And I just turned my car to the right and started driving up that river.
Wow.
And about halfway, I followed it as much as I could until I got to the headwaters, on the edge of Rocky Mountain National Park. Some of it was the road through Utah, and then get into Colorado on the interstate, and then turn off onto a dirt road and follow it up through Kremling. And halfway through that journey, I've said, I'm getting a packraft.
Yeah.
I'd seen, it was something that came into my consciousness, and now I just following that river, I was following it back upstream because that's the direction I was going, but I was like, I want to float rivers to explore some of these corridors and to see these places. And it's really, when you're on the river, you're floating through an ecosystem. The water is kind of what's giving life to everything through the ecosystem. It's like the lifeblood or the arteries of that landscape. And this is, never more true than in the desert, where you see this stark contrast between it. But it's like you get to go through, like floating down, the heart of these environments, and seeing all the nature that comes to, the wildlife comes to the river to drink. The plants, grow stronger and fuller in the areas where they can access the water that's seeping through the soil. And in the desert you get the stark contrast with the rocks and the cliff walls, where they're beautiful, but there's often not as much life around there, to where the river is, and maybe there's a spring coming down the rock and moss is growing and it's green, and this kind of contrast of the colors and of the beauty. And it's amazing to get to see these places.
You really, that's the only place that you can see those things from that perspective, is in the middle of a river, and
it's different than when you go on a trail or you go on a road. You're going to these amazing, you can go through amazing places doing that, but it's like when you're going down the river, it's almost like it just feels a little different. Like your nature is almost coming to you as you just float by through the middle of it.
Wow. Oh my gosh. That was just like, that hit me in my soul, because that's true. Yeah. Like you said, everything comes to the water. So it's all coming to you, and you are a part of it and witnessing it and being in awe of it. And having that deep remembrance in the DNA that we're all a part of it, and witnessing it all at once. Also, I feel like there's this element of, like, you go through places oftentimes where the banks are untouched by humanity, and so you also get to see that's a neat perspective of, oh, this is how it grows wild, without any cultivation other than nature.
In Idaho, you have a lot of free flowing rivers here, where the river will rise and fall as the snow melts and the summer goes on. And when it rises really high, it will sweep all the sediment together into like the corners or the outside of these bends, which then when the water falls, it'll be a white sandy beach. As in this ebb and flow of, the rise and fall of the river changes the way the banks work, and the way the different plants grow, because some plants grow well when the river floods. And so like in the desert and in Colorado, we have cottonwoods. But when they dam the rivers and they just release it at a constant flow, the cottonwoods won't grow anymore, because they require the soil to have this flood and dry cycle for them to propagate and to grow.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is so insightful.
So
because there might be this thought of like, oh, well, if we controlled the water in all of the rivers, then maybe we could bring more life, but that's not always true.
You bring different life.
Different life, different life. Life
it's
will
more
prevail.
Tamarisks and things that are less fun to have on the banks is kind of how it turns out, seemingly ironically, I guess, but also just a reminder that when we try and force our will on nature, it doesn't always turn out as great as when nature has its own design and is allowed to do its own thing.
Yeah, just like our own lives.
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, when we allow ourselves to just be the nature that we are created to be. Zooming in, zooming out, all the things, taking the right turns, right hand turns. Thanks to your right hand turn, you're here and you're here.
Who knows the direction my life would have gone if I'd just followed the GPS. And
absolutely.
Not, followed the instinct. It was like I didn't know what was to come by doing that. It just seemed like, oh, well, this will delay me 45 minutes getting back, but it'll be a neat experience. And it kind of then changed the whole direction of my life. In a way, making that turn.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. How can people find you?
So I do have a YouTube channel where I post mostly packrafting videos of trips that I've done, and it's youtube.com/@cbarnard.
Incredible. Awesome. Thank you for being on the Golden Exposure Podcast.